Chapter 307, Reunion, 3. I relayed Bei Hurayong's words. Sorry. For being late. The elder's breathing slowed down. It might have even stopped for a moment.
Ha!
I couldn't see her expression. The brim of her conical hat was wide. The shadow was deep. Because her bangs covered her eyes, I couldn't see the elder's pupils. All I could hear was her scoffing, grinding her teeth in derision.
Ha!
Like raw flesh being ground on a millstone. On top of the elder's teeth, her life was being finely ground. It left behind only traces of scorn, scattering around. Even if you say sorry now. Quest progress. It's too late to. The incarnation of love and lust nods. Make such a lame excuse. The incarnation of love and lust acknowledges your progress. You wouldn't dare say it's my fault, right? Even if I have lived over 1,000 years, it's been 150 years. 150 years. That's unreasonably long for a human. Who would imagine staying on one stage for 150 years? Quest progresses. It's long. Idiot. The incarnation of love and lust declares quest completion. It's just too long. Quest clear. The quest you temporarily participated in is now concluded. All followers of the incarnation of love and lust are granted the right to ascend to the next stage. Before I knew it, the elder was gripping my collar with both hands. As a godslayer, a witch who nailed 6 constellations, and the master of all spiders, she had 5 fingers. This child. You're the successor of the Sword Emperor. Yes. It wouldn't be just anyone who becomes a successor. Your faction prides itself on tradition and legend, saying it's a one-person succession, not that I'm curious, but you always bragged about it. Of course. If this child fails, even you won't be able to climb the 100th floor. Unfortunately, that's more likely. Over the elder's shoulder, Bei Hurayong silently crossed his arms. The two of them stood on my shaky words, talking to each other. If you made him your disciple just because he can use a bit of aura, I'll kill him. It's surprisingly your freedom to kill whomever you want. Draw your sword. Thud. The elder released my collar. 1 step, 2 steps, she backed away. Finally, as her bangs fluttered, I could see her expression. It's not God who decides who has the right to climb to the 51st floor. Tell those so-called constellations bastards to get lost. Quests? Damn it. Go eat shit. The elder was looking straight at me, pointing her staff my way. I'll test you. Heir of the Sword Emperor. If you're so weak that you can't even climb the 99th floor, then be to spare here. You must have become a god after passing the 40th floor. You acted like a god to those ignorant races and enjoyed all kinds of luxury. Then, at least kneel before me and show that you're nothing but a mere human. Confess to your race that you've been lying all along. Even if you don't have the strength to climb the 100 floors, at least you're in a position to free your race from the oppression of nonsense. I will question your qualifications. I glanced at Bei Hurayong. Bei Hurayong showed no reaction. Is that so? I don't think the constellations are gods. They're just beings who can do a little more than others. Calling them dragons wouldn't change anything. Gray Spider. Whether it's the hunters who persecuted you in the past, or you who now rule the hunters, it's all the same to me. I unfastened my sword sheath from my belt. But that's just what I think. And then I let it go. The goddess of protection remained silent. Thump. The holy sword made a sound as it hit the ground. Early on, after leading Constellation Killer to another world and being torn apart, the goddess of protection, shiny, who regained her peak strength through my hands as she was gathered back into one, silently accepted her fall. I enjoy fighting according to the opponent's way of thinking. I took my stance. There was no sword. Like the gray spider, I only had 5 fingers. That way, I can shatter them completely. I clenched my right fist. Come at me. I will crush you without borrowing any of the constellation's powers. With my left hand, I beckoned, come here. A cheap taunt. Really? Seeing this, the elder, who had only let out scoffing laughter as if being torn apart, finally burst into hollow laughter. She laughed and took off her hat. I don't know about other things, but it's clear that the Sword Emperor chose you as his successor based on your character. Thud. The black conical hat fell to the ground. I used magic because it allowed you to kill people faster and more efficiently. Beating them one by one with fists, it would take forever to annihilate the 5 races and deal with the godly brats. It was simply a choice of efficiency. Her staff dropped. Her thick robe dropped. Lastly, the black hairpin that was skewered through the elder's hair crumbled in her hand. That doesn't mean I haven't learned to use my fists. Kid. The gray hair flowed down. You might not know, but I am a genius among geniuses. It's not really related to the current situation, but I suddenly remembered the old saying, a most unlucky fellow. It's what I always thought when I saw the Sword Emperor, but for some reason, the same words come to mind now when I look at you, Gray Spider. Why is that? Maybe it's because you two are a match made in heaven. Do you have wisdom teeth? What? Do you have wisdom teeth? In your mouth. Yes. Good. The elder lowered her waist and took a stance. If your molars fall out, use your wisdom teeth to fill them. Baby. In an instant. The elder's figure disappeared. 4. The shock came before the sound. Boom. My skull twisted. Then, not from my ears but from inside my head, a loud explosion resounded. The pain came afterward. I then realized that the gray spider's fist had struck my right cheek. Right before me, the elder was laughing with her fist clenched. Wow, oh, dash dot. Aura. Acceleration. The Sword Emperor's girlfriend sure knows how to throw a punch, dash dot. Tooth 26. First large molar. In the accelerated timeline, the gray spider muttered. Pop. On the opposite side, my left cheek, a sharp pain burst. 45th premolar. What to do? Already 2 teeth have been knocked out. Something whizzed in front of my eyes. Turns out, it was a blood-stained tooth. The elder had caught my tooth, which had been ejected from my mouth, and deliberately rolled it in her palm. If you get hit 2 more times, will all your stored wisdom teeth fall out too? Right, I didn't ask your age yet. Do you only have milk teeth? As you get older, you'll get permanent teeth, so take good care of them. Great. I smiled. I'm okay with this. And then, like a snake, I stretched out my arm and twisted the elder's wrist. Squeeze. I faked a twist, and the elder resisted, not wanting to be dragged along. But that was exactly what I wanted. I relaxed the strength in my hand. Like releasing a rubber band, my body shot forward. Thump. My forehead struck her face. It was a headbutt like hammering a nail. A squishy sensation vibrated from my forehead. This, fucking, son of a bitch, dash dot. The elder's nosebleed poured out in midair. Regrettably, it couldn't be helped. Like me, the elder must have strengthened her whole body with aura, but when a hard forehead collided with a hard nose, it was obvious which one would break. You shouldn't bleed like a child from your nose, elder. I threw a punch. How old are you to be so undignified? I'll beat the crap out of you and make you an old man. Then I shall rejuvenate you, elder. See? This proves my character is a bit better than yours. My teeth flew out. Wow. Aha. My pronunciation was slurred. Indeed, if 3 teeth are missing, pronunciation becomes unstable. But what does it matter? With aura for telepathy, there's no problem. This guy is amazing. Crazy bastard. Somewhere, there was a cracking sound. It seemed like a rib. Why I'm not sure, even though it's my body, is because I shattered the gray spider's shin before I could check where I was broken. Thus, we each recognized our own pain a step too late.
Ah.
Damn.
Ugh.
Bastard. While screaming, I stomped on the elder's foot. The elder cursed and struck my chin. Below, above. Left and right. A brawl ensued wherever we could hit.
Ugh.
Cook. Our screams crossed once more. The eye living in the labyrinth is at a loss for words. The lone seeker of truth watches the duel. The warhorse of the eternal plains is dumbfounded. Before long, even the constellations were watching our dogfight. But it was only for a moment. As soon as the messages filled my head, the gray spider lifted her right foot and slammed it down on the ground, boom. Whatever magic was in that stomp, I don't know. One thing was certain, the noisy messages disappeared instantly. Piss off. The gray spider's face, soaked in nosebleed, contorted like a demon. Her roar echoed over the monopolized city, a city she had ruled for 1,000 years. This is my fight. It's not for those star-headed bastards to gawk at. If any more of those starry bastards babble, I'll chase them to the ends of hell and tear their souls apart. So, shut up. What's this? That's cool. And you, shut up too. My jaw was shattered. No joke. It really broke. But still, I didn't stop laughing. I used aura to reconnect the shattered bones and replace the severed nerves. Even the ribs. And my just broken left knee. The opponent was the same. Even as our bodies were wrecked, the speed of our punches didn't drop. The Sword Emperor hates you. What? Bei Hurayong, who had been quietly watching, was startled. Regardless. I laughed heartily and threw my punches with all my might. He really hates you, so he ran away to the 99th floor. What the hell is this guy saying? He was fed up with being stalked by you. No. Hey. When did I ever? He said he felt peaceful not seeing you for 150 years. The beauty of provocation is that, even if it's baseless agitation and fabrication, it infuriates the listener. Normally, one would just ignore it. But in a situation far from normal, say, when exchanging punches, and especially when one's nose bone is shattered, the instep is crushed, and the shin is split, things change. This bastard, really a fucker, huh? The elder's face was on the verge of passing out from anger. Hey, hey. You're putting too much power into your punches. You'll tire out before me. Have you forgotten about conserving energy? What the hell is with that stupid way of speaking? Apologize to venomous snake. He's done nothing wrong. Don't you feel sorry for him? You cold-blooded. Unbelievable. Ah, shit. Ah. Where did this lunatic come from? Good. The opponent's breathing was disturbed. At that moment, thud. I struck the elder's side hard. Damn. The elder's face soured. I won't use the power of the constellations. I burst out laughing. But I didn't say I wouldn't use my tongue. What is this damned street rat? This is human power. Human power. Aren't I showing you a fight full of humanism just as you wanted? Is there a problem with that? Fuck, really, damn, Okay. An opening. I struck again. Gray spider. You are strong. Seizing the moment her breathing faltered, I struck more where I had hit, pounding my fists even harder into those spots. The rhythm had completely shifted to me. Blood rushed to my head and endorphins flowed. I'm just a bit stronger. Ugh. Because. In front of the Sword Emperor. You can't afford to fall apart in front of the Sword Emperor, whom you've reunited with after 150 years. You'll want to show a splendid figure, saying you're better and superior to him. But I don't have such concerns. It's impossible for me. Taunt. I put strength in my back leg and pushed off the ground. I've already shown all kinds of foolishness in front of the Sword Emperor. And then I threw an uppercut. With all my strength. With all my might. What difference does it make if I add one more embarrassing history here? Time seemed to stop. The elder's movement, which had been just a reflex response to pain, staggered and twisted. With her jaw struck by my punch, the elder glared at me in that same position. What kind of? I dare say she wore the most aggrieved expression in the universe. This kind of, Sword Emperor-like bastard. Thud. Finally staggering, the elder collapsed onto the ground where she had spread the spider webs with her own feet. She had fainted. Even in unconsciousness, the elder did not close her eyes. She glared at me with her eyes wide open. As if to say, the beautiful duel she had imagined was never meant to be like this. Phew. However, standing on the world with 2 feet is more admirable than glaring at it with 2 eyes. I stood tall and let out a laugh.
Ha! Ha! Ugh.
I won. And then I roared. Loud enough to echo throughout the entire city. I won. The one who annihilated 5 races. The Forsaken Master of Grey. The God Slayer. The greatest pillar. I, the Death King, have defeated the master of all spiders. There was no response. The constellations were chased away by the gray spider. The regular followers and other spiders, busy fiercely battling around the spire, had no time to pay attention here. People had long evacuated, fearing they might get caught up in our fight. Only Bei Hurayong was watching this way, with an indescribable expression on his face. Look at this. Did you see? It's my victory. The ties you had, the regrets you held, the one you thought you left behind. With these hands. With these 2 fists, I have won. So, how about that? I'm something to be proud of, right? Proud enough to go crazy, right? Why is that?
Yeah.
Bei Hurayong looked incredibly embarrassed. Kim Gongja, you're driving me a bit crazy. Of course. The final victor is me. Chapter 308, Layer by Layer, 1. Death King. No, Gongja Nim. Sorry, but please let me say just one thing. Surprisingly, Alchemist Nim, you have the right to freely speak not just 1 word but 100, 1,000 words. That's under the assumption that the other person generously listens. And not to boast, but I'm originally quite a generous person. Gongja Nim, you are seriously an idiot right now. That was the first thing the alchemist said after examining me for 30 seconds. I don't mean it in a derogatory sense, but really. Literally an idiot. Not just any idiot, but a tremendous idiot. That's a bit harsh. Then I'll go for crazy. What? Huh? I tilted my head in confusion, and the alchemist did the same. Time, far surpassing human cognitive ability, flowed for an instant. The alchemist continued nonchalantly. How can you be alive in such a condition? Right now, I could write a thesis on Gongjanim's condition. This, the arm. Like this. Yap.
Ah.
See how easily it bends? The curve is very smooth, just like this. Yap. Like that. Kayak hook yuno akwiwi aok.
Yeah.
The bone is completely shattered. You know when you crush raw noodles and eat them, the crumbs that remain under the bag. Gongjanim, you are currently in a crumb-like state all over your body, including your jaw and skull, here. I give up. I give up. Stop bending it. I'm going to die. You talk as if you are still alive. As if you aren't a corpse. I am alive. For now, I will treat you. The alchemist sighed. However, the more severe the injury, the greater the backlash of my skill. I will try to assist with potions as much as possible, but the pain will still be immense. If we consider the pain just now as level 1, what level would the pain associated with the treatment be? Don't overreact like you've been hit by a slime. Indeed. Is she telling me to die? I've lived a life without shame. Gongjanim, you have two choices. Choosing between life and death has always been a difficult question for me. Will you receive treatment all at once? Or, would you like to receive treatment bit by bit, arms, legs, 12 organs, head, shoulders, feet, knees, feet? Please tell me the difference. Well, is it about enduring pain beyond death all at once, or experiencing pain worth dying several times? A choice between death and death. Die to live. Or, die over and over to live. Even Admiral Yi Sun Sin would find himself at a loss before such a redundant set of choices. This can never be a speech to motivate the soldiers. Even the most patriotic soldier would shout Hell Josian and flee. About Hell Josin read here https://en.wikipedia.org/wiki/hell_Joseon. So. What will you choose? I choose death. Sorry. I don't understand which one you are referring to. Well, it's better to get hit by the cane all at once. Based on my many years of life experience, I said. Just treat me all at once. It will hurt for a moment and then be over. Okay. The alchemist took out a glass cylinder from her pocket. A thick, red liquid, like hangover soup, sloshed inside the glass bottle. Now, please lie down. I lay down. Close your eyes. I closed my eyes. Then, please live. I lived. Yes? There was no answer. Feeling an inexplicable sense of foreboding, I blinked. 2. Blink. When I opened my eyes, I saw purple irises right before me. It was the face of the Tower Master. The Tower Master, expressionless, looked down and muttered. This is a bit troublesome. Amethyst Nim? You shouldn't have come to a place like this yet. What? Please go back. What do you mean? Wait a minute. But where is this? 3. Hup. I suddenly sat up. The back of my neck was damp. Wah, what? It felt like I just realistically experienced the afterlife. Are you finally awake? A familiar voice reached my ears. The elder. Gray Spider was lying on the bed next to me, leaning back. She too seemed to have received treatment, her body wrapped in bandages, sipping some unidentified red juice through a straw. Hey! That healer you brought was amazing. A year's worth of recuperation got reduced to a week. I'd like to hire her for our tower. Well, the alchemist is a bit overpowered. Wait a minute. A week? A week has passed? You've been screaming like a chicken for 173 hours, 31 minutes, and 26 seconds, so roughly a week, I guess. Goodness. Shiny congratulates you on your safe return, brave knight. The holy sword on the bed vibrated with a woo-woo sound. That's impossible. I had only closed my eyes for a moment. It didn't feel real that a week had passed in that brief interval. What happened? What do you mean? My life? It's a mess. Not that. I remember defeating you and capturing you. I had defeated the gray spider. But that glorious moment was brief. My injuries were too severe, and I had to leave the battlefield. Somehow, we managed to contact our world and called Alchemist for treatment, which I received that day. Treatment? Could that even be called treatment? Perhaps a newly developed, sophisticated method of assassination. Anyway. Our duel is one thing, but the outcome of the battle hasn't been decided yet. That's right. The Magic Tower lost their leader, the Elder. It seemed like the Anti-Magic Tower Alliance was gaining the upper hand. But even so, the spiders refused to surrender, barricading themselves in the 5 spires. Naturally, the Anti-Magic Tower Alliance surrounded these spires. A long and tiresome siege began. That's what I was asking about, the outcome of that siege. I understand what you're expecting, but nothing has been decided yet. Gray Spider shrugged her shoulders. Sure, my capture must have shocked them. But surrender is another matter. They won't raise the white flag unless defeat is absolutely certain. Even if I threaten your life? Of course, some might waver. Gray Spider smirked. But you wouldn't do that. Well, that's true. I nodded. You're not planning to escape and start a second fight, are you? I really want to, but... No. As much as I hate and despise underhanded tactics, a duel is a duel, a test is a test. Unless you try to kill me, I'll stay put as a prisoner. Gray Spider muttered, mentioning the triple layers of sealing magic making escape difficult. Surprisingly, she seemed quite calm about her defeat. Maybe you're trying to look good in front of Bei Hurayong. Really, what are you trying to imply? A strong denial often means. It's just a strong denial. You scumbag. Hiya. To describe the recent incident, Gray Spider lifted her bandaged leg and hit my waist, and my not yet healed ribs screamed in pain. Similarly, Gray Spider's also not yet healed leg bone crumbled. It was a magnificent harmony. As a result, I was gasping, holding my waist, while Gray Spider groaned, clutching her leg. Yuck. Damn it. In the hospital room, the groans of 2 people filled the air. There was no room to blame each other for their foolishness. It was just purely, very, very painful. Truly, when it really hurts, words don't come out. Bei Hurayong looked at us with eyes that seemed to say, what kind of fools are these? Are you guys idiots? Sword Emperor said he's been in love with you for 15,511 years. Really want to die? Oh. Truly a match made in heaven. I put aside the pain. Such is life. It's My Life, by Kim Gongja. Shiny looks at you with worried eyes today, thinking you are being very heroic. It's because my whole body is in pain. Understand? Anyway, the fight isn't over yet. It's not over until it's over. Excuse me, but isn't the situation already concluded? The leader was captured, and you're surrounded. What more do you need to admit that defeat is certain? Well. Gray Spider narrowed her eyes and glanced over here. Maybe by now, the deadlock has been broken. There was something ominous in her eyes. What do you mean by that? Our magic tower has tentacles spread across dozens of worlds. Kid. We did summon a large army after a long time, but that's not our entire force. If the children holed up in the spires are the main force, then there are others we could call guerrilla units. While they're holding out here with a siege, the guerrilla units might have attacked your world. What? Until a week ago, we had no way of knowing where your world was. You hid underground like a paranoid mole. But, a week ago, you called for a healer. That's when our kids would have pinpointed the coordinates of your world. While you were unconscious. Gray Spider wore a triumphant expression. As if she had landed a big blow. What the? Little Sword Emperor. You are certainly strong. I'll acknowledge that. But remember this opportunity to learn. In war, being strong alone doesn't guarantee victory. Gray Spider clicked her tongue, TSK, TSK, and shook her fist. She probably intended to waggle her fingers back and forth, but the bandages made her hands like mute gloves, so she failed. You captured me as a prisoner, but we've taken your entire world hostage. If you were a typical psychopath like most hunters who cleared 50 floors, you might say, so what? But you're kind. Crazy, but kind. This can't be happening. Yes. Death King. Your goodness is what has caught you. How could you use such a foolish strategy? Gray Spider tilted her head in confusion. Groans from two people filled the hospital room. There was no leeway to blame each other for their foolishness. It was just purely, very, very painful. Truly, when it really hurts, you can't speak. Beihurayong looked at us with eyes that seemed to say, what kind of idiots are these? Are you both idiots? Anyway, think of this as a valuable lesson. Well, I'm not a demon. You're still young and have a bright future ahead. As a token of acknowledging your serious acceptance of the defeat in our duel, let's call it a draw. 1 win, 1 loss. It'll be a great experience. That's true. I have a feeling something great is about to happen. What? That nonchalant attitude. Let's see if you can stay so relaxed after seeing people from your world begging for their lives and asking to be saved. The next day. Ugher. A rumbling sound echoed. Some flies were buzzing around, so I had to swat them a bit roughly. On the ground were dozens of unconscious spiders. All of them were commanders with significant magical power. About 600 other spiders, who would have been under their command, were tied up outside the building. A burka stood with his arms crossed, looking resolute. I would have preferred to resolve the misunderstanding through dialogue, but they wouldn't listen. I had no choice but to use my fists. How sad. Such is life. Any problems, Daddy? Oh. I waved from my bed, munching on potato chips. Gray Spider on the adjacent bed had her mouth agape. Except for the slight feeling of dying from pain, I'm perfectly fine. Son. No different from usual, then. Well, just a regular day. Any trouble in Babylon? No major trouble. Ugher. Just minor ones. Apart from these, all sorts of merchants from various worlds have been flocking in. Oh dear. And then? Even if our world is new, the news should have spread by now. If they have any learning ability, they won't dare to mess with Babylon anymore. I put down the bag of potato chips. Looking back at Gray Spider. That's how it is. Anyway, think of it as a good lesson. Well, I'm not a demon. The elder has her age to consider. In recognition of the splendid duel you showed, I'll be considerate. I have one win. You have one loss. I smiled brightly. It will be a great experience. Gray Spider slowly wrapped her head. Then, she muttered in a voice as if cursing the universe. Someone, please beat this brat for me. Hang in there. Life is beautiful, isn't it? Chapter 309, Layer by Layer, 2. In the end, it took 10 days for me to be discharged from the hospital. The period of 10 days was actually quite a stretch. Gongja Nim. In this world, there is no such thing as a complete cure. The alchemist said while checking my bandages. Your body might seem fully recovered, but it always loses something, always. Something or the other. Now I feel completely fit though? That's exactly the illusion I'm talking about. The alchemist sighed. For instance, Gongja Nim, you use aura in your muscles and blood circulation. Thanks to that, your muscles exhibit tremendous efficiency, which seems beneficial. But on the flip side, it means you become extremely weak when you can't use aura. Well, I guess that doesn't really matter, does it? I shrugged my shoulders. I'm quite skilled with aura, after all. If we were in the outside world, you would have died instantly, Gongja Nim. There's no aura or mana in the outside world, after all. I closed my mouth. The alchemist wrapped the bandages without changing her expression. Yes. After all, we can't return to the outside world. But even if we could now, we wouldn't survive. You do understand, right? Gongja Nim's body didn't just gain benefits. It has adapted to a specific environment and can only survive in that environment. Yes. That's it. The alchemist tightened the bandages. Fighting is not romantic, and wounds are not medals. At least that's how people like me see it. Please try to resolve conflicts with words rather than physically. I can't promise that I won't get hurt again in the future. However, I said, I'll keep in mind your advice to solve problems with words. And so, right after being discharged, I found myself standing in front of the headquarters of the 5 Spires, the magic tower. To solve things with words. 5. Mic test, mic test. Weeing. Following the alchemist's advice to refrain from using aura for a while, I didn't use telepathy. Instead, I brought a magical item, a voice amplifier, to my lips. It wasn't as clear as telepathy, but still, a pretty decent voice echoed. Can everyone in the magic tower hear me dash? Silence in response. The spires had no windows. Their surfaces shone black like obsidian. Even though their figures were invisible, the spiders must have been all ears. Of course, our side, the followers of the Anti-Magic Alliance, were also focusing on every single word I said. You all have no chance of winning now. Amidst the standoff between thousands of spiders and thousands of followers, I leisurely spoke. The Gray Spider has been defeated and captured by me. Your last hope, the guerrilla unit, instead of conquering our world, has become prisoners. Frankly, your chances of winning are 0. I turned my head and gestured. Ugger. Aberka, who was waiting behind, nodded. Aberka brought a bundle prepared in advance and stacked it neatly in front of the spires. The magic tower's spiders, rolled up in blankets. They were prisoners who had invaded our world and were captured. Damn it! Untie this. Untie it, you bastard. Let me go. Don't shout. It's just more embarrassing. The spiders wiggled about, their heads poking out of the blankets. From a distance, they might have looked like pill bugs. I comfortably sat on top of the prisoners. Squeak. Am I heavy? As you can see, all the commanders of your proud guerrilla unit have been captured. Not to mention hundreds of ordinary spiders were also caught. In other words, your hope has been utterly crushed. That was the moment. I surrender. From one of the 5 spires, a voice was heard. Our magic tower's 5th headquarters has always admired Lord Death King. It was already being discussed internally to surrender, but now we have finally spoken. We are sorry. Please, Lord Death King, have mercy on us. If you tell us to bang our heads, we'll hop from here to there with our heads. If you ask us to roll around like dogs, we will. No, we have already become dogs. Woof. Woof. Long live the Death King. Impressive. No. You don't have to go that far. Yeah, you bastards of the 5th headquarters. Woom. Immediately, an angry voice erupted from another spire. How can you be human and do this? What? Didn't you just hear? We are not humans, but dogs. Dogs. As dogs, we can do as much as this. Have you seen such bastards? Have you already forgotten the grace of the elder? You were even the chief spokesperson. But that elder has been captured. Continuing to resist is meaningless. And speaking of the spokesperson, that's a position that was supposed to rotate weekly from the 2nd to the 5th headquarters, right? But haven't you guys been sneakily dumping it on me for the past 500 years? Do you bastards know how it feels to be stuck with a 500-year-old burden? Why bring that up now? Then when should I bring it up? When you all are dead and buried under a tombstone. Farewell, you trash. Meeting you was a sorrow and living was a damn curse. I'm escaping. As expected, impressive. It's too good to just listen. While I was inwardly admiring, a voice started spreading from the opposite spire. But if the 5th headquarters falls, doesn't that mean we lose our last chance? Let's surrender. Just do it. Why are you guys like this too? We were in charge of communicating with the guerrilla unit until the end, so we know. Their world is no joke. I heard there are more than 2 Constellation Killer level hunters. There were even reports that they saw the real Constellation Killer. That's obviously a lie. You believe that? No. I have a good instinct. I felt the same when the 6th headquarters was raided by the Sword Emperor. My instinct tells me that if we continue the siege, we won't even get the broth. What the hell kind of instinct is that? I'm so frustrated, huh? What? Now the 3rd headquarters is leaning towards surrender along with the 5th? Then there's no point in watching anymore. Hello. This is the 2nd headquarters. We will surrender too. But if we raise a white flag now, will you spare our lives? Lord Death King. Please don't forget who surrendered first. The 5th headquarters. Stretch out your fingers and count to 5. Please remember the 5th headquarters, it would be a great favor. Okay. I finally get it. Exactly what I need to do now. Please wait a moment. I hurriedly ran somewhere. It was the building that had been used as a temporary treatment center for the past 10 days. Thud. As I pushed open the wooden door and entered, the gray spider was crouching in a corner, clutching her head. What the? The gray spider looked up as I entered. Her expression was much more haggard compared to this morning. Why did you suddenly come here? Oh, don't mind me. It's nothing. I took out a high-definition smartphone and took a picture of the gray spider. I just thought that capturing this moment would be a precious memory to tease the elder later. So, you're saying you came back here just to see my embarrassed and despairing face? Right now? While my children are negotiating a surrender? Just to mock me? I blinked. Maybe you could put it that way? You crazy. Thump. I closed the door behind me and returned to the siege site. As I was leaving the building, the gray spider shouted something at me from behind. However, I didn't have the time to listen. After all, I was in the middle of intense negotiations, wasn't I? There was no time for distractions. Mic test. Mic test. Yes, I understand. Of course, I am happy to accept your surrender. I spoke earnestly. Of course, I will ensure your lives are safe. If you wish, I can even provide a separate area for you to reside in. However, you must give up the exclusive rights you enjoyed on the 50th floor, and please liberate the other worlds you have colonized. An immediate response followed. Lord. Those are very reasonable terms. Finally, the long era has passed, and a new age has dawned. All hail the Death King. Long live the Death King. We, the 5th headquarters, salute you. Shut up with your nonsense. It's not for us to decide, but for the elder. We will cooperate, though. Right. As long as our lives are spared. There were a variety of voices. The voices translated directly into results. Over the next half-day, the surrenders continued. Magic Tower's 5th headquarters. The 5th Net, Authority Network. All 481 members, hereby surrender to Lord Death King. The tightly shut main gates of the spires opened one after another, like the teeth of a great white shark. Even as the gates opened, the followers of the Anti-Magic Alliance remained vigilant. They tensely watched the surrender procession. Fortunately, no incidents occurred. Magic Tower's 3rd headquarters. Nest of Sorrow Network. 1,333 members. We all surrender. The spiders, lining up, knelt before me and the followers standing behind me. 2nd headquarters of the Magic Tower. Nest of Anger Network. 736 members. We will surrender quietly, so please spare our lives. Thud. The ordinary spiders wearing robes took them off. Thud. The commanders wearing pointed hats removed them and respectfully placed them before their kneeling figures. Thud. Regardless of rank, the thousands of staves they held were laid on the ground. Thud. 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 There were also spiders who surrendered in silence, with their mouths firmly shut. This marked the end of the 1,000-year reign of the Magic Tower. The followers lined up behind me watched the scene in silence. There were a few who, showing their teeth, wanted to vent their anger on the spiders or harm the surrendered prisoners. How could there not be? The incarnation of love and lust cedes the decision over the prisoners to the Death King. There were voices that held back the followers. The warhorse of the eternal plains cedes the decision over the prisoners to the Death King. The bell that mourns the dead cedes the decision over the prisoners to the Death King. The eye living in the labyrinth cedes the decision over the prisoners to the Death King. The lone seeker of truth cedes the decision over the prisoners to the Death King. All the constellations who participated in this war, all of them ceded the rights over the prisoners to me. This was the quest reward I had requested from the constellations. I made significant contributions in this war. The biggest contributions, visible to anyone. I was in a position to demand almost anything from the constellations, and thus, I received the right to decide the life and death of all prisoners. How can we just let these people live? Be quiet. When the apostle of the Warhorse of the Eternal Plains couldn't contain his frustration and spoke up, the apostle of the Incarnation of Love and Lust calmly interrupted him. It's what the constellations desire. And that is also what I desire. If the disposition is left to us, what awaits is nothing but a hellish aftermath. Torture, interrogation, humiliation, all sorts of venting. A festival of blood would commence. It's more comforting to leave it in the hands of an outsider like the Death King. The apostles fell silent. I don't expect them to deeply accept this decision. I don't even think about it. That's why I plan to take the spiders to the lion world. To the continent where the goblin race became the losers. Distance makes the heart grow distant, after all. Nothing much will change from how it has been so far. Just one more race, the witch race, will join the Fire River Council, which includes all races. Before I knew it, it was evening. The blood-red hue that nearly stained the ground shifted to the sky, dyeing it with the sunset. In the end, the first headquarters didn't surrender. Assistant Writer muttered. "What are you going to do, Death King?" The last bastion of the magic tower refused to surrender. Despite 4 out of the 5 spires having surrendered, the last one remained locked, staunchly calling for a desperate resistance. The obsidian-like surface of the tower reflected the red sunset. Maybe a scapegoat is needed. Look behind you. Everyone is silent, but boiling inside. Assistant Writer's words were right. The apostles, including the ordinary followers, were glaring at the last unyielding spire. Their faces showed unresolved resentment. An anger that probably wouldn't dissipate anytime soon was simmering. Even the spiders who had already surrendered sensed this mood and quietly bowed their heads. I understand. All the forces stationed on the 50th floor have now tacitly consented to a massacre. You are a hero. Assistant Writer said. The hero who liberated the 50th floor. But, above all, a hero must first choose whose side to take. I hope you don't make any mistakes now. I was about to open my mouth to retort. Ugher. Thud. A giant hand covered my entire shoulder. I turned my head to look up beside me. Don't worry. Daddy. I understand the situation. Aburka. Send me to that spire. My son smiled with his fangs bared. Perhaps, I can make them surrender. Chapter 310, Layer by Layer, 3. I looked at my son for a while. Silence ensued. Aburka's fangs, which he brushes every day with aura, were pearly white. The evening sunset lingered between my son's teeth. Aburka. I said. As there had already been silence before, my voice continued smoothly. If I send you, you will become a messenger recommending surrender. Do you understand what that means? Aburka laughed softly. I know. Everything that Daddy knows and worries about, I know it all. Even so, I know that Daddy has no choice but to accept my request. Please send me. Goodness. There's probably no other pious son as rebellious as you. Ugher. Can such an adjective even be attached to the word pious son? Why not? Break the shackles of common sense, my son. Language is something we create. Our father-son conversation leisurely flowed into the evening glow. Wait. You guys. What kind of nonsense are you spouting? Assistant writer spoke. She seemed incredulous, having listened to our conversation. Indeed, language is something we create. As a writer, one must avoid being ensnared by the ghosts of language and losing sight of its essence. So, if my words deviate from grammar, it's not that I'm wrong. It's the grammar that hasn't caught up with me. Thank you for agreeing, Assistant Writer Nim. We are of the same mind. But let's set that aside and throw it to the dogs. You mean to send a messenger? So, you're my son. Ugger. Right. I won't ask how you ended up with a son resembling an ogre-like race. I prefer not to meddle in complex family matters, especially when it looks as tangled as electrical cables behind a computer. Just tell me what you're planning to do. Are you really going to send your son into the heart of enemy territory? Yes. That's dangerous. Assistant writer frowned deeply. For some reason, even her glasses seemed to frown. Can't you see the current situation? Over there, the first headquarters of the Magic Tower is calling for a desperate resistance. In such a situation, if the enemy leader's son comes as a hostage, what will they do? Will they say, "Oh, come here, have a seat, have a cup of tea and then you can leave, be careful on the stairs on your way out"? Or will they say, "We have captured the evil Death King's son," and start filming some kind of tragic confinement drama? The analogy, however fitting for an apostle of Hamustra, was opposed by other apostle-level hunters from the Anti-Magic Alliance. Assistant writer is right. Well, I don't really understand what tragic confinement drama means, but let's just assume she's right for simplicity. The important thing is that we already gave them a chance. We gave them more than enough chances. Yet they still refuse to surrender. Death King. They have trampled upon the mercy you offered with their filthy feet. Issue the order to attack now. Let Mayhos's warriors lead the charge and sweep away the spire. While it's excessive to annihilate all the spiders, sacrificing one spire seems about right, doesn't it? The Berserker, the apostle of the Warhorse of the Eternal Plains, the apostle of the incarnation of love and lust. Each of them presented different arguments and justifications, but their intentions were clear as day. They desired a massacre. That's why this is a problem. I reluctantly condoned the massacre. I couldn't refuse what the parties themselves wanted. Betraying the 5 guild leaders who recognized me as their leader would be a treasonous act. I promised my friends a new era. Even now, they guard our base, working for the lives and safety of ordinary citizens. So, even though they are not here right now, they are as unmistakably present and real by my side as Bei Hurayong. Before I knew it, all the commanders around me were looking at me. After all, I was the one with the decision-making power here. I casually looked up at the sky. Is it evening now? The sky of the 50th floor often had dark clouds. Through a slight gap, the sunset was bleeding. It would probably turn dark soon. A long night is coming. Until dawn breaks and lights up the city. I looked at the tower. That is the deadline granted to them. And then, I looked at a burqa. Therefore, that is the deadline granted to you. I didn't add that it was also the deadline granted to me, nor that it was the deadline granted to us. I didn't mention that whatever outcome of the negotiations he achieves in my absence, or the outcome of failed negotiations, would also be a burden I bear. Nor did I say that sending him meant I trusted him that much, or that I would share the responsibility for his failure if it occurred. It wasn't because all apostles of the Anti-Magic Alliance were eavesdropping on our conversation, nor because the first branch of the Magic Tower might somehow be listening in. It was because a burqa had already said it. He knows everything I know, everything I worry about. and that he knows I have no choice but to grant his request. Yes. It's known. There was no need to elaborate on all the things we already knew. I simply said, "My son." I shook my head and spoke again. "Chief warrior." Aburka bowed his head. I lightly tapped his firm and broad forehead with the back of my hand. "Do what you can do, what you must do, and what you want to do." I received the order of the family head. The chief warrior of the Death King family answered. 6, it's just one night. I said to the apostles. Until dawn breaks. Until the day starts. After that, whatever you prefer. I know you have already waited 1,000 years. So I understand how shameless it is of me to ask you to wait a little longer. And then I lowered my head. Deeply. So much that my forehead nearly touched the ground. Nevertheless, everyone. Could you please grant my request? Oh, no. The apostles were flustered. Wait, Death King. There's no need for you to bow your head like that. Right. Without you, we wouldn't even dare to think of attacking the magic tower. There were those who vocally dissuaded me and those who hesitated in silence. Of course, there were also those who couldn't quite suppress their boiling breaths.
But
even the most vehement among them did not object. The apostles, after exchanging glances and consolidating their opinions, began to speak one by one. All right. We can wait for one night. The 1,000 years of the 1,000-year magic tower will just become a bit longer, that's fine. Even if it's not one night, but 1,000 nights, or even 1,000 years, those first tower bastards won't change. Good. Thank you. I had their agreement. I stood up and looked back at Aburka. What are you doing? Why aren't you going already? When the sky brightens, I will personally lead the charge and tear apart the magic tower's last web. You better go and persuade them as soon as possible. Understood. Aburka bowed deeply. And without giving me a chance to stop him, Aburka ran. Yes, he ran. If leaping hundreds of meters in a single step is considered running, that is. Kwang! The entrance of the spire burst open. Bang! Kuwung! Dozens of barriers and hundreds of spells protecting the gate were ripped apart. Immediately from the top of the spire, a warning alarm sounded, whining. In fact, even before the alarm went off, screams were already heard inside the spire. Enemy invasion! Enemy invasion! What? Who is it? What's happening? I am Aburka, the son of the Death King. I have come here to talk with you. What the heck? His son? The Death King's? How could he be so different from the one who gave birth to him? Why would someone who wants to talk break down the door and create a mess? Ooh ha ha ha. Dialogue is a right only those with power can enjoy. If a weak person asks for a dialogue, you wouldn't even listen. I know. I know everything. So first, let me prove my strength. What do you mean you know? Hey. Wait. Just a minute. This is really not a joke. Requesting support. Requesting support. Our forces are being decimated. Kuwung. With someone's scream as the last sound, the iron door of the spire closed again. It seemed they had prepared a backup door in case of a breakthrough. Thorough preparation. Who in the universe could have been prepared for the likes of Aburka? The apostles on our side were enveloped in silence. Assistant writer barely opened her mouth. A quite unique envoy for proposing surrender, isn't he? He's not wrong though. If you're powerless, no one listens to your talk. Well, I'm completely convinced now that you're that person's father and he is your son. Like father, like son. My heart is much more handsome though. Huh? What? Night fell. The spire, already obsidian-like, became eerily quiet as darkness compounded with blackness. It was as if the chaotic scene from Aburka's entrance was a lie. No voice or footsteps could be heard. Time passed. I sat cross-legged on the bare ground, meditating. The alchemist scolded me for relying too much on aura, but now was the time to accumulate aura through breath control. No one disturbed me, absorbed in my meditation. The ordinary followers were scared by the formidable martial prowess I had demonstrated 10 days ago. The apostles left me alone out of respect. Right now, I was a father who had sent his son to a deadly situation. Aren't you worried? Only the gray spider, who didn't feel the need to be considerate, spoke to me. She approached, leaning on a cane. Ucha, Ucha, she sat down beside me. Damn. Thinking about living like this for a while drives me crazy. Hasn't your magic power started to recover? It's recovering. But that healer you brought keeps telling me if I use magic again, I'll die.
Ha!
I could kill them with a flick of my finger. I can't remember the last time someone dared to speak to me like that. Gray Spider grumbled. Is everyone from your world so insolent? Each one I meet is. But why are you doing that? Huh? Doing what? You heard that using magic could kill you. Why are you preparing to use magic? Gray Spider sighed. Far away, 300 torches lit the camp, flickering. But Gray Spider's gaze was not on them. She just quietly looked at the first magic tower. Because I will need to use it soon. You accepted defeat as a participant in the duel, didn't you? I accept it. But I can't just stand by and watch those guys die. Gray Spider spoke with a laugh. What can I do? I have no choice but to die with them. You have loyalty. I slowly circulated aura throughout my body. Was it Karamu? The one who escaped the magic tower with me. That kid stabbed his superior so skillfully with a knife, showing a tactical shift that would work even in League of Legends, from the 2nd to the 5th branches. I thought there was no such thing, but... What's League of Legends? It's an old game. And don't change the subject. Everyone has a few special people, don't they? Gray Spider's voice was still light-hearted. Then, she glanced at the 300 torches and the apostles surrounding the first magic tower. Of course, there are more people who are not special at all. So, let me give you a heads up. If you know who is important to you, why did you do that to those people? Don't come up with such nonsense. If you really want to indulge in moral superiority, go ahead, but please do the same to those bastards too. Gray Spider sighed, a sigh deep and dense as if filled with venom. Isn't it funny? We condemn the magic tower. We mourn those who died under the oppression of the magic tower. Therefore, we are innocent victims. Really? Aren't they just crazy bastards? And her words were as heated as they clung on. They only think about what they suffered upon reaching the 50th floor. They don't care about what they did in the floors below, not even a bit. Or, they probably don't even remember. Even if some do remember, they likely rationalize it with excuses like, it wasn't my intention, or, I was secretly opposed to it. Trash, all of them. Gray Spider spoke more quietly than the burning flames. Pretending to be gods. I did not respond. Gray Spider took a deep breath and let it out. Anyway, these bastards. talking about justice, cause, mourning, and all that grand stuff, but from start to finish, they are just rationalizing their own feelings. After all, the basic principle of a cult is to change doctrines based on the situation of the day, right? The air of the night was no longer chilly. Heated by the fury of the apostles and extended by the hatred of Grey Spider, the night felt muggy. Grey Spider ended her speech with malice and disdain. So, Death King. The first magic tower is comprised of my sisters who set foot on the 50th floor around the same time as me. They can never surrender. Those false god bastards, standing proud and puffed up, expect us to lie flat in front of them, better to die. Don't you think? I said. So you will oppose them? It seems so. As a result, they will probably all die. Or suffer an even worse fate. The heat faded from Grey Spider's voice. And thus, she spoke again with a light-hearted tone. Isn't that just the way of the world? If that bastard were here, he'd surely spout something like that. I'm going to give 200 likes for it. Isn't that right, Death King? 7. I gave a bitter smile. I'll make no comment on Bei Hurayong's remarks. Right. Don't say it. Why did you send your son as an envoy? Are you curious? It's not so much curiosity as it is a sick feeling. Seeing you sitting here moping makes my stomach turn. Grey Spider narrowed her eyebrows. She seemed angry. Look at you. You're no different from that Sword Emperor bastard. Upward, upward, more upward, you chant, but the ones left behind, drop down, are those who wanted to be by your side. Wasn't it your son? If you were worried about your son, you should have stopped him. Why? I am not worried. I said. I don't worry about my son. Aburka said he would persuade them, and since he said so, he will. It's not a whim. You might not know, but Aburka was a conqueror who had once brought a whole continent to its knees. He's a hero of the age who vowed to accomplish this task. I have never doubted my son. Silence followed. The Grey Witch quietly closed her eyes and said, How can you be so sure? Still with her eyes closed, the Grey Witch murmured softly. What if he can't persuade them? I just told you. It's better to die or suffer a worse fate than to surrender. They won't. They can't. Because we were in the same situation. Grey Witch flinched. Slowly, she opened her eyes. The same situation? Aburka's race. Why is that? They too were once slaves to another race. There was a time they revered me as a god. I said. And they chose a different path than you. A path you can't imagine. A path that you might question if it's even possible. Aburka will tell them, speak to them, and show them that another world might exist. Only someone who was born in the same place but walked a different path can truly persuade another. I did not look at Grey Spider. I looked at the 300 troops, beyond them, at the sky unfolding. So, my son will surely be able to convince your subordinates to surrender. Gradually, dawn began to break. Chapter 3:11, The Next World, 1. The change in the spire occurred when dawn had just barely touched the edge of the earth. The earth was dark, and the surroundings were silent. The Grey Spider, who had stayed up with me through the night, perked up her ears. We were in the midst of darkness, indescribable, but certainly in the midst of silence. Even the sound of moving ears was audible. He's calling. The Grey Spider narrowed her brow and looked towards the spire. Yes? Not me. No, he's calling you, Death King. Who are you talking about? I followed the gaze of the gray spider and looked at the tower. The huge iron door was still closed. There was no sign or sound of anyone, whether it was a burka who went in to suggest surrender or the spiders who decided to surrender, in front of the door. I don't see anyone. He's already standing in front of the door. Alone. I don't know what you can do. Maybe what you used when you fought me is just a part of your full capability. But the same goes for you. Do you think you have seen all the 1,000 years that the magic tower has? Indeed. I understood. I nodded my head and unfolded my crossed legs. That's right. It wouldn't be surprising if some spider had skills like making the body transparent and erasing presence. Being quick to understand is your strength. I'll go check it out. Do you have any message to convey? Thank you for staying. Thinking of the kids who ran away pisses me off. But let's curse those bastards gathered outside rather than them. How succinct. I headed towards the spire. The first headquarters of the magic tower were surrounded by a moat. A bridge as clear as glass connected the castle gate and the outside of the castle gate. Standing on the bridge, I could see a faint shadow on the glass, like soot. Did you call for me? Someone was standing right in front of my nose. Even though invisible to the eyes. The transparent person gazed at me for a while. Don't move your lips, use telepathy. Finally, she spoke. Not too strongly. Just enough for me to hear. We can't have someone eavesdropping on our conversation. Sending telepathy to a specific person who's invisible is quite difficult. It's difficult, but not impossible, right? Please do it. I shrugged my shoulders. Fine. Even the elders among you would find it hard to eavesdrop on this conversation. Now, please speak comfortably. But the transparent witch couldn't speak comfortably. Once again, after a long silence, she spoke. Are you a Burka's father? That's good. What is? That you asked if I'm a Burka's parent instead of asking if I'm the Death King. It shows that, to you, a Burka is quite an important figure, engraved in some way. You could have called him that bastard or pig son with derogatory terms, but you politely used a Burka's name, referring to me as a parent. I nodded my head. It seems a Burka is doing well in persuasion. Or, has done well. But the fact that instead of sending a formal surrender envoy, you chose to meet me secretly like this, suggests there's a minor trouble. Isn't it? The transparent person fell silent for a moment. We listened to a Burka's story carefully, thoughtfully, and seriously. We heard about what kind of being you are. We're late because we were verifying if that story was true or false. I tilted my head slightly. There was a sense of tension in the voice of the other person. As if fearing something close by. Why is she so tense? We didn't just sit still. We dispatched an investigation team to the Lion World. We followed the route a Burka told us, contacted the Dream Demon race. Death King, we saw the history you've made as a god. Why are you so scared? What? You're trembling right now. You're scared. Is something wrong? What do you mean, is something wrong? Are you seriously asking that? For the first time, the transparent person let out a laugh. It wasn't a laugh of amusement, but one of incredulity. What are you scared of? Obviously, I'm afraid of you. Me? In my dreams, I saw you commanding 1,000 elite soldiers in black robes under your command. I saw the goblin warriors willingly following you and thousands of Asuras. And I also saw the image of the constellation killer under your control. And you're telling me not to be afraid? Of you? You could easily devastate us, the 50th floor, and build your own 1,000-year empire if you wanted to. The transparent person muttered, "This is really crazy. I've imposed a gag order on the investigation team. Most of our kids still don't know what kind of hunter you are. In other words, you're the person in charge of the first headquarters. Have you considered surrendering to us?" "Yes. But there's a condition." "Condition? What is it?" "We are surrendering to you. To the Death King. Only to you." The voice was very clear in telepathy. Transparent in tone, there was no hesitation or reluctance in that voice of resolution. "I will never surrender to a ragtag group like the Anti-Magic Alliance. You were the only one who treated our races as true friends. At least, you tried your best to do so. Not just you, but you convinced your companions as well." "Yes. I admit it. If it's you, there is meaning in our defeat to you. But not them." The transparent person was invisible. However, I could clearly tell that she was pointing over my shoulder, looking in that direction, and grinding her teeth. Is there even one innocent person among those who set foot on this 50th floor? Sometimes there were those less guilty. Such kids willingly joined our magic tower. Do you understand? Death King, do you get it? We will never kneel in front of those bastards. It was the same thing the gray spider had mentioned. I thought for a moment and then said, "So, you mean to say you'll leave the people of the Anti-Magic Alliance empty-handed?" "Yes. They never deserved to gain anything in the first place. It's only because of you they could even get a spoonful. To those bastards, I will not even give the illusion that we have one." The words of the transparent witch were resolute. "Yes. We haven't lived well either. I admit it. But only a Burka and you, and the warriors of your world have the right to humiliate us. We would kneel to you any time, but not to the others. Never to the others." "What does a Burka say?" He said, "It's a difficult task." And he recommended talking to his father. The reason I'm here is because of a Burka's advice. Of course. That makes sense. Happy endings are always hard, aren't they? What? Protecting something precious to oneself. Whether it's vengeance, pride, or anything else. The world is like this not because there are many people who value nothing more than their lives, but because there are many who have things they value more than their lives. What are you saying? Is this some kind of riddle? I'm not into that. I understand what's precious to you all. I was mentally prepared. So, you don't have to kneel in front of your followers. There was a brief pause. As if my words were unbelievable. Really? Yes. Open the door, cross the drawbridge, and go to the lion world. My children there will guide you well. But please cross this drawbridge on foot. I, too, set a condition. The invisible person finally laughed. It wasn't a laugh of joy, but one of absurdity. Crossing the spire invisibly and teleporting to the lion world is impossible. If you only want to surrender to me, if you absolutely can't kneel before your followers, then show at least the courtesy and spirit of crossing the drawbridge. Surely, there won't be anyone attacking us while we cross the drawbridge, right? I am the Death King. I said calmly. If you know what kind of being I am, you should also know the weight that my name carries. You can trust that promise. The transparent person was silent. All right. But eventually, she agreed. She must have had no choice but to nod. It's just, really, simply walking across the drawbridge. What's so difficult about that? The spiders working in the first headquarters must have crossed the glass drawbridge countless times. They would think it's not difficult. Then, in an hour. Yes. Please come out in an hour. I bid farewell and returned. When I returned, the gray spider was staring at me with an expressionless face. Ignoring her gaze, I casually sat down beside her. A weak one. Playing tricks. The elder is the chief in charge, but I still need to know how things are being handled. So you lied to the tower manager? Saying, even the elder would find it difficult to eavesdrop on this conversation when you sent telepathy to both of us at the same time. That's right. From the beginning, I let the telepathy flow to both the transparent tower manager and the gray spider. Thanks to that, the elder knew the whole story. Was the sound quality okay?
Yeah.
Reception was good, you bastard. Do I look a bit different to you now? The gray spider looked up at me. The look she had when I casually mentioned Aburka's past and now, after hearing the conversation with the transparent witch, was a bit more intense. The gray spider lamented. Is it all true? I crossed my arms and puffed out my chest. Yes. I am the Death King. Not that, you bastard. 1,000 elite soldiers in black robes obeying without hesitation, countless goblin warriors, thousands of Asuras backing me up. I have two rivals, one commands 1,000 elite soldiers in white robes and warriors of 256 colors, and also a scruffy, wild-haired punk, and the other, without such influence, is just an incredibly strong old man, with the original Sword Emperor. Not that, you damn dog. I puffed out my chest even more. Of course. The part about turning the immortal brilliance into a sword? Subjugating the blood-red devil king and making him serve? That fearsome constellation killer, even the season boss of this 50th floor, constellation killer, is under my command? Not that trivial stuff. You're really slick, damn it. Unlike the transparent witch who showed fear of the power I held, the gray spider dismissed it as trivial. Strong bastards. Bastards who control a mountain of strong bastards. If you live 1,000 years, you're bound to see countless, ordinary strong ones. What do you think is the reason we haven't pinned down all the constellations under the tower? Those fake gods and their higher-ups, those perverts led by mayhos, watching us from the 50th floor while munching popcorn, what do you think is the reason? The gray spider gritted her teeth. The slightly unexpected part is that you took in Constellation Killer, but that's because he wasn't one of those trivial strong ones. The same reason the Sword Emperor was different. But you know what I'm talking about. Really? Yes. Truly? That's right. Death King, you are. The invisible witch, who had paid more attention to my power, had not fully realized something that the gray spider, even from a distance, had accurately understood. She groaned and asked. On the 30th floor, the 40th floor, did you not reign as a god? I nodded. Yes. I can't believe it. The gray spider shouted out loud. That you are such a person, no, that such a person exists. Until now, no one. Yes. You can say that. I spoke to the spider. You can believe that. You can think of me as a liar, assume that the contents confirmed by the first magic tower were misunderstood, dismiss it all in one go, forget about it and move on. That's definitely a choice you, Spider Nim, can make. Or, you can choose a completely different option. The gray spider clenched her teeth. She leaned towards me, but at the same time, she took a step back, ending up in an awkward stance, neither coming closer nor moving away. I waited. The gray spider, looking alternately at the magic tower, the armies surrounding it, and the increasingly bright dawn, muttered like a cornered animal in its death throes. The dream demon race or whatever, they showed them your conquest process in dreams. Yes. Show it to me too. Let me see it, and then, no. Anyway, first, show it to me. I nodded. That's something I can do for you. And so, I did just that. 2. Dawn was slowly climbing up the sky. The sound of dawn climbing was the sound of the followers in the tents and makeshift buildings of the Anti-Magic Alliance stretching, the apostles getting ready, a child crying somewhere, livestock bellowing. Yes. And it was the sound of a certain magician, who had lived for 1,000 years, saying yes. The eyes of the gray spider were blurry. It wasn't just because she had just had a long dream with the help of the dream demon race. A small murmur. After a little while, with her face covered, the gray spider began to speak. I never had the intention of protecting my sisters. I just wanted to find the man who impregnated my mother, kill him, burn his village, destroy the territory of the village, topple the country of the territory, burn the continent of the country. At some point, I found sisters around me. Her words seemed to flow out not from her flicking tongue, but just from her parted lips. I had no sense of responsibility. But I had responsibilities. A bastard who doesn't shoulder responsibilities where they are due, I realized, was like my father, like our godly kin. I decided not to become like them and became a monarch to my people. I established the magic tower. The promised morning. The iron door of the spire creaked open. I never had an aspiration in my life. Not to become like that. Not to resemble him. To kill those bastards. Looking back, I've been living consistently with just that purpose. The followers of the Anti-Magic Alliance murmured. The murmurs were of various kinds. Are they really surrendering? Damn it, let's see how shameless they are when they come out. It's over. It's our victory. Thousands of people, each expressing their own emotions, surrounded the spire, watching. It was the first time. With the Sword Emperor. From the gap in the open door, hundreds of spiders walked out. Like him. It was the first time in 1,000 years that I wanted to be like someone other than myself. The spiders did not come out carrying a white flag. What's this? The murmurs of the diverse crowd began to converge into a singular focus. There's no white flag. The spiders walked with confident strides and did not bow their heads. Straight. They walked out of the iron gate, looking straight ahead. Really, what's this? As if they had not been defeated. It was light. The voice of the gray spider, saying this, was not heavy either. But that was because there was no longer anything left in it. That man seemed like he hated nothing. It wasn't an act. I have the discernment to recognize that much. But that doesn't mean he's particularly good. He wasn't the type desperate to help others. He was just light. Like the wind. Anger. Contempt. Malice. Even the deep-seated hatred that had been firmly in place until I showed her the dream. I wondered if it was possible to live like that man. The people of the Anti-Magic Alliance began to shout. Kneel. Apologize. Feeling they had been too lenient in witnessing the surrender of the past 4 headquarters, the followers shouted without hesitation. Kneel. That their entire lives were fundamentally wrong, kneel. Not just a few parts, but their entire existence was fundamentally flawed, kneel. The followers attempted to prove this conclusively on this occasion. I thought to myself. Kneel. That it's impossible. That such a life is impossible, not only for me but for anyone else. Kneel. That the Sword Emperor was just a unique exception. Kneel. But now, I see. Kneel. It wasn't necessarily so. Kneel. The spiders of the first headquarters began to step onto the drawbridge. Thud. The bridge, clear as glass, did not tremble under the weight of hundreds of footsteps. The gray spider and I were standing at the edge of that drawbridge. Even if different from the Sword Emperor. Even if completely opposite. Even if it's heavy. Extremely heavy. A different life was also possible for me. As we watched, the spiders of the first headquarters confidently crossed the glass bridge. The closer their confidence came, the hotter the anger spewed by the followers became. Kneel. Can't you kneel? Those creatures. Some even tried to throw rotten fruit or trash, fetched from who knows where. You don't have to. I said. Thank you. It might be possible. The gray spider lowered her hand from her face. I spent over 100 years thinking of the Sword Emperor as a special exception. I could spend over 1,000 years thinking of you as a similar exception. I was not wrong. I lived my best. I did, but... As she said this, she was both crying and laughing. How utterly embarrassing that would be. And then... The gray spider slowly knelt down. The spiders of the first headquarters, who were crossing the drawbridge, paused. Not just them. The spiders of the second, third, fourth, and fifth headquarters, who were nervously watching the surrender ceremony, and the followers of the Anti-Magic Alliance who were frenziedly jeering, even the ordinary hunters who had joined in the festival-like scene, shouting and cheering, all stopped. I'm sorry. The gray spider knelt towards the followers. I apologize. I was wrong. In place of the hundreds of spiders who refused to kneel, the largest spider, the monarch of all witches, a godslayer who had never knelt even before gods, with bandages wrapped around her body, pressed her forehead to the ground. Quietly. My 1,000 years were wrong. The city fell silent.